Greetings, Attorney Derek DeBrosse here. Derek DeBrosse, munitionsgroup.com, coming to you from Dublin, Ohio. Our offices here, offices in Ohio as well as Louisville, Kentucky. Please make a comment with any questions you have so we can put it into the queue. Like us, subscribe to us so you can get all the updates on our videos as we come out with more and more content. Today, I want to actually give you guys an update to something I had mentioned when I started my restoration series. As many of you know, I've been practicing law for about 15 years and cut my teeth on restoration of law issues regarding gun rights. Got involved with that actually through doing a lot of wrongful conviction work and assisting on that front with criminal clients, and saw a need for it in the gun industry. So that's what I've been doing. Just so that those of you that follow me know, I'm going to be teaching at the NRA convention this year, the annual meeting of members in Dallas, Texas. I'm going to be teaching on restoration. So it's a legal seminar they put on every year. I've done it about 3 years in the past. It's an honor. I appreciate the NRA for inviting me. So if any of you want to attend and shake my hand or meet me or ask any questions you may have, please feel free to show up to that. And that's all online. If you just Google NRA convention, you should be able to find it, and legal seminar is what you're looking for. All right, so today, as I promised, we're going to be updating you guys on two issues. The first is dealing with representative payees, government benefits, and guns regarding Social Security and Veterans Affairs. I have my notes here to talk about that. And then secondly, we're going to talk about what is a fugitive from justice. In fact, I'm going to start with that. So if you remember, when we started the series, we talked about what the disabilities were. And one of those disabilities was found under 18 United States Code, or 18 U.S.C. 922 subsection G2, which says no fugitive from justice can possess guns or ammunition, firearms or ammunition. So I remember mentioning to you guys that I was going to look up a little bit more case law on what a fugitive was, because really not a lot out there. I've never even had this really come up in my career, because what's the easiest way to fix a fugitive from justice issue? Not be a fugitive from justice. So once you're apprehended, it kind of goes away. So unless somebody's charged with possessing a gun while they're a fugitive, it normally wouldn't come across my desk, and normally they're not getting charged with that. They're getting caught before that becomes an issue generally. So there was 4 cases I was able to find through research. But first I want to talk about the actual definition in the United States Code. So this is found at 18 U.S.C. 921 is the definition section of the Gun Control Act of 1968. And subsection A15, alpha 15, states, the term fugitive from justice means any person who has fled from any state to avoid prosecution for a crime or to avoid giving testimony in any criminal proceeding. So what I pick up on with that definition is that it states that the person has fled from any state. Now, there was a case we're going to go over that cited to another state's case that said, well, this person never fled our state, they just stayed out of state, and therefore they're not a fugitive. This court disagrees, and let's just jump into that case actually. And it looks like it's the U.S. versus Spillane case, Spillane, 913 Federal 2nd 1079 is the citation. And basically what happened in this situation is there were a gentleman who did not flee New York directly. They simply found out about the warrant or capias for their arrest while they're out of state and simply didn't return. The court said that's enough, essentially, as I understood the case. And the summary of the case reads that the defendant was a fugitive from justice within the meaning of the Gun Control Act, even though he did not flee New York or perhaps know that failure to appear led to a warrant for his arrest, where he purposely stayed away to avoid charges pending against him, since he knew that charges were pending and refused to appear. And his reckless disregard for the truth satisfies the scienter requirement. So essentially the overt action, the criminal intent element that is required to prove somebody was guilty of a crime. So if you leave the state, find out a warrant's out for your arrest in your home state, and you say, you know what, I'm going to stay out of state, this court is saying that is enough to be considered a fugitive. Another case, U.S. versus Mittleider, Mittleider, 835 Federal 2nd, 769. The summary states an individual who has fled from the state to avoid prosecution for a military crime is a fugitive. So the argument was, hey, I'm just AWOL, I'm not a fugitive from justice. And the court said, no, being AWOL is actually a crime. It's a federal crime. The definition doesn't specify what kind of crime or what jurisdiction the crime needs to be committed in. You just have to be a fugitive from justice. So in this instance, this person, I think it was in Georgia, left Georgia to avoid having to face the music for being AWOL. And I think he changed his name a few other times, actually, and it was pretty nefarious from there. All right. The third case I was able to find is United States versus Collins, 61 Federal 3rd, 1379. And this one basically stands for the proposition that if you flee the state but come back to the state and are still evading capture, you're still a fugitive from justice because you did flee the state, you just happen to be back in the state and you're still avoiding arrest or capture. And then lastly, actually dealing more directly with the definition of fugitive from justice, is one that basically talks about, actually the last one dealt more with the definition. It dealt with the 921 definition, not so much the active provision of the Gun Control Act, which is 922. But one other case basically, not really super on point, but I found it basically saying that somebody can be convicted of a complicity crime or like aiding and abetting somebody who's a known fugitive from possessing a gun. And it went through a whole analysis as why they helped them possess a gun. So that's the case law I was able to find a fugitive from justice. Interestingly enough, as I read this, I came across a potential client years ago. He came to me. He was from Ohio. Was visiting Kentucky. Got caught with a small amount of marijuana in Kentucky. It was basically a traffic ticket. And he said, I'm just never going to go back to Kentucky. And I advised him at the time, and I think my advice is correct, at least as it reads in the law, that, look, you fled the state to avoid being prosecuted. And that clearly is a fugitive from justice for purposes of the Gun Control Act. Now, I will say under the Bruin case, the New York v. Bruin case, there could be an argument here that, such a low-level, petty, quote-unquote, crime, does that pass constitutional muster in a Bruin, right? Did the Founding Fathers envision a restriction on a citizen's constitutional right to keep and bear an arm simply because they didn't pay a small fine for a low-level offense that didn't even necessitate the requirement of a jury in a lot of instances? So, I think there's definitely a constitutional argument on some low-level, quote-unquote, fugitive from justice, not paying a traffic ticket, for instance, and things like that. So just keep that in mind. All right. I want to move on to the second thing or update that we have here today, and that is dealing with what we have regarding mental health, disabilities regarding mental health, for those that have a represented payee for government benefits. This includes VA benefits as well as Social Security. So I did a little bit of checking, and from what I could find, under President Trump's tenure, in conjunction with the House, they passed House Resolution, I think it was 40, House Joint Resolution 40, which basically says that the Social Security Administration would not be permitted to implement a rule under the NICS Improvement Control Act that would necessitate them reporting information for people who had Social Security benefits yet had somebody managing their money for them. So again, when you're under government benefits, you can apply to have your checks sent to somebody else so they can manage your finances. And to do that, there's a finding that you cannot manage your own affairs. And under a strict reading of the Gun Control Act and definitions thereof, that's to be considered as adjudicated mentally defective under the Gun Control Act of 1968. So basically Congress acted and said they shall not implement the NICS Improvement Control Act as such. Now, they tried to do similar things with VA benefits. VA benefits, you can get a representative payee to handle your finances as well. However, that has kind of stalled. In fact, the most recent information I was able to find, there's a news article on military.com, and what military.com basically said was that it was the Representative Mike Bost, or B-O-S-T, Republican from Illinois. He was actually getting into a sparring debate with a representative from the Veterans Administration over why they would not support a bill or a law or a rule forbidding the VA from reporting this stuff to NICS. You can read on that if you Google it. So as of today, there is no such protection for veterans. If you're looking to get a representative payee for your veterans benefits, I would encourage you to seek competent counsel. Just a heads up, my associate, Mr. Truman, is going to be talking about a new case, I believe, in front of the Supreme Court that may needle away at the Chevron deference issues. This is very relevant to the gun litigation world. If you don't know what Chevron deference is, please stay tuned. You're going to hear from him about that. I'm going to be continuing my series on restoration of rights. My next video here in the next couple weeks will actually be picking up where I left off, and we're going to talk about felons and how to restore their rights. As always, remember to be safe and carry on.